This is the book of Jeremiah 15:5 in the NLT. Who will feel sorry for you, Jerusalem? Who will weep for you? Who will even bother to ask how you are? First and foremost, I want to give all praises to Yahawah, Ba'ashem Yahawashi, Ba'ashem Hakwadash, double honors to the apostles and the elder bishops at Great Millstone, peace and salutations to the elect. So I'm going to read this again. This is Jeremiah 15:5 in the NLT. Who will feel sorry for you, Jerusalem? And that's exactly right. Who does feel sorry for you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans? And the answer to that is nobody outside of Yahawah, Ba'ashem Yahawashi. And, you know, what sparked this lesson, I was watching the news and, you know, RT to be exact. And they're going into, you know, what happened to Moab when Ammon came over there. You know, they call it the rape of Nanking. And they making a big deal out of it. You know, Moab wants justice. But there's nobody to call for justice on the behalf of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay? The stuff that you've been through, these other nations, they don't care. All right? But if something happens, like, you know, with this situation, you know, what Ammon did to Moab, you know, during World War II, or even what's going on now over there in, you know, our land. Okay, these other nations are on board. You know, they want to make a big deal about it. Okay, they, you know, condemning it as a genocide. But the stuff that happened to you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, nobody cares. Okay, and the things that continue to happen, nobody cares. Nobody feels sorry for you. Okay, and there's a reason for that. You know, multiple reasons for that. All right, it says, who will feel sorry for you, Jerusalem? Who will weep for you? Ain't nobody crying for what you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are going through. Okay? Nobody is sympathizing with your plight. Okay? Basically, they tell you to, you know, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. You know, the reason why you in the predicament that you in is because you lazy. You don't work as hard as these other nations. You know, completely negating all the hell that we've been through since we've been in this country, man. Okay? And how that affects us unto this day. Okay, you don't just get over, you know, 400 years of chattel slavery, man. It don't work like that. Okay, those things have lasting effects. All right, just like, you know, the things that's happening to these other nations have lasting effects. When it comes to you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, nobody cares. Okay, all that's just out the window. You niggas got to get over it. You know, it says, who will even bother to ask how you are? None of these nations care. Okay, and the reason for that, well, one of the main reasons is because these other nations are your enemies. Okay? They like to see you in the state that you're in. All right? So why would they care to ask how you are? Why would they care to inquire of your well-being? Because if you ask somebody how they're doing, that means you eventually going to try to help them out. But when you hear their story, these other nations ain't trying to help you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, this is Lamentation 2:15. It says, all that pass by clap their hands at thee. They hiss and wag their head at the daughter of Jerusalem. And the daughter of Jerusalem is talking about you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, so these other nations, they sit there and they basically mocking you. They see the situation that you're in and they're making fun of you. Okay, they ain't trying to ask you to, you know, about how you're doing. Okay, what your mental state is. They don't care about that, man. All right. But when it comes to these other nations, oh, it's a big deal. This has to be on national TV, you know. It says, they hiss and wag their head at the daughter of Jerusalem, saying, is this the city that men call the perfection of beauty, the joy of the whole earth? Yes, and they mocking you. Okay, well, these are the people, you know, that Yahawah, Ba'ashem Yahawashi chose. Well, look at the state that they're in now. They're completely destitute and through, you know. It says, all thine enemies have opened their mouth against thee. They hiss and gnash the teeth. They say, we have swallowed her up. Certainly, this is the day that we look for. And this is the reason why these other nations ain't worried about what you got going on. They're your enemies. Okay? And the scriptures list who your enemies are, which our people are completely ignorant to this fact. These are the same people that Jake is reaching out to. They looking for sympathy from Moab. They looking for sympathy, especially from Esau, Edom. And you ain't going to get that from this damn devil. Okay? You just not going to get. He's the main reason why you in the predicament that you're in. Okay? But Jake will not cease to, you know, stop going to this damn devil for sympathy and for you know, to get some kind of restitution from Esau, Edom. He's not going to give it to you. Okay, this is the book of Psalms 83 and 1. It says, a song or psalm of Asaph. Keep not thou silence, O power. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power. Yeah, and that's what we ask in Yahawah, Yahawashi. Okay, and see, this is another reason why the Heavenly Father has it set up like this. None of these other nations care about your plight, because the Heavenly Father wants you to rely on Him. Okay, He's the only one that cares about what our people are going through. He's the only one that inquires of the state of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, so what are you supposed to be doing? You're supposed to be turning to Yahawah, Yahawashi, but our people are rebellious. Okay, it says, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. So these other nations, they're all in a conspiracy together to keep you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans in a certain position. Okay? And you are completely oblivious to this fact. You go into these nations, you know, trying to get sympathy from them. Okay? Trying to get them to see your plight, but you don't understand that they all have an agreement to keep you in the position that you in. You know? So why would they care about your plight when they're responsible for you being in the situation that you in? Okay? It says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Okay? And it's not meaning that the name Israel is going to cease to exist. The name of Israel is going to cease to exist amongst so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, and that came to pass when this damn devil basically beat our nationality out of us. Okay, if you spoke your native tongue, he would beat you, or he would put you to death. Okay, if you try to practice your ancient customs, he would try to put you to death. Okay, or some type of severe punishment will come down upon you. Okay, they showed you that in that movie Roots. All right, he said his name was Kunta Kinte, which that was all BS. Okay, that initial account, but that actually happened. Things like that happen. Okay, you want to keep your name that your parents gave you, keep your customs. This damn devil literally beat it out of us, man. Okay, it says, for they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites. And now you see why there's a big stink over what's going on over there in Gaza. Okay, because they're one of the nations that these other nations are in cahoots with. Okay, so of course there's a problem if Ishmael is getting jacked up. We actually care about Ishmael. You know, of course there's a problem if something happens to Edom, because we're in league with Edomites. Okay, of course we care if something happens to Moab, and so on and so forth. Okay, but you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, everybody hates you. All right, you got a lot of enemies out there, and you don't know that you have enemies. You think everybody's your friend. You know, it says the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites, of Moab and the Hagarenes, which Moab is the so-called Chinese, the Ishmaelites are so-called Arabs, Esau, Edom is a so-called white man, the Hagarenes are Hamites. Okay, and a lot of, you know, especially of the southern kingdom, because we have a similar skin complexion to Hamites and similar hair texture, Jake will look to Ham for help. Okay, Jake will look to Ham for solidarity, and Ham looking at you like, we ain't the same people. Jake's bugged out, man. It says Gabal and Ammon, which Ammon is the so-called Japanese, and Amalek, and Amalek is your chief enemy. Okay, and this is the sneakiest devil of them all, because he actually, you know, gets close to you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and acts like he's trying to help you out. You know, he'll play on that, you know, BS holla hoax that happened in sales. See, we could, you know, be in solidarity about, you know, similar struggles. When this damn devil is the main one responsible for the situation that you in. Okay? But he'll use his lies, okay, to try to get close to you so he can overthrow you. All right? It says Gabal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines, which are more Hamites, with the inhabitants of Tyre, more Hamites. Assur also is joined with them, which that's the Assyrians. Okay? They have holpen the children of Lot, Selah. Do unto them as unto the Midianites, As to Sisera, as to Jabin at the brook of Kison, which perished at Endor, they became as dung for the earth. And see, this is what you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be relying on Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi, but you're not doing that. You're looking at all these other nations for help when they're your enemies. Okay? The reason why these other nations don't care about you, the Heavenly Father has it set up like this so you can turn to Him. Okay? We just read in Jeremiah the 15th chapter, who shall bemoan ye? Okay? Who's going to have pity upon you? Who's going to ask how you doing? These other nations aren't doing that. The only one that has done that is Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi. Okay? And He's done that by sending the prophets. Okay? The prophets are out there inquiring about the state of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. All right? But what does Jake do when the prophets are presented to him? Jake get mad. Jake cop an attitude. You know, Jake start talking shit. You know, but the Heavenly Father literally has sent the prophets to inquire about the state that you're in. Okay? But Jake don't see it that way. You know, this is the book of 2 Chronicles 36 and 15. It says, "And the Lord, Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi, power of their fathers, sent to them by His messengers, the prophets, okay, rising up betimes," which betimes means early. So early in the morning, Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi would send His messengers to you. Okay? Rising up betimes and sending because He had compassion on His people. So when Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi sends the prophets to you, okay, in particular, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, that's Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi extending His hand out, man. Okay, that's Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi inquiring about the state that you are in. Okay? And the Most High warns you, look, if you continue down this path, I'm going to destroy you. All right? And you don't want to go down that path, but hey, you know, Jake do what they do. Okay? It says, rising up betimes and sinning because He had compassion on His people and on His dwelling place. Okay, so the Most High didn't want to see or doesn't want to see you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans get destroyed. Okay, so He sends the prophets to extend the hand of mercy to you. Okay, now what you do with that hand of mercy is on you. All right? But it's not the intention of the Heavenly Father to put you to death. But if you reject His word, then you're going to have judgment coming to you. Okay, it says, but they mocked the messengers of the Most High and despised His words and misused His prophets until the wrath of the Lord, Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi, arose against His people till there was no remedy. And this is the situation that you find yourself in today. Okay, completely destroyed and separated from your power. And Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi is having mercy on you now by sending the prophets and inquiring about the situation that you in, and you doing the same thing. Okay, you rejecting, you know, the help that Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi is offering you, and you looking towards these other nations, and these other nations don't care about you, man. Okay? And again, Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi has it set up like that on purpose, so you can turn to Him. Okay? He's the only way. He's the only way for you to fix the situation that you in. Okay? This is Isaiah 10 and 20. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel and such as are escaped of the house of Jacob shall no more again stay upon Him that smote them. And when you look this word stay up, it means to rely upon. Okay, so the reason why Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi has it set up like this, where none of these nations care about you, is so you can come to the conclusion that He's the only one that cares, so you can turn to Him. Okay, the Most High wants you to solely rely upon Him. Okay, He don't want you dealing with these other nations. He wants you to rely on Him. But Jake can't get it through they thick skull, man. The only one that has really inquired about the state of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans is Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi. Okay, and we're the only ones, through the spirit and power of Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi, the prophets, we're the only ones that's calling for justice for what happened to our people. Okay? And that's the Heavenly Father calling out for justice and retribution for what happened to you. Okay? But Jake don't care. Jake want these other nations to feel some kind of way about what you're going through when they're the ones responsible for putting you in the situation that you in. Why would they care, man? It says, shall no more stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon the Lord, Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi, the Holy One of Israel, in truth. the remnant shall return, even the remnant of Jacob, unto the mighty power. Okay, and that's what Yahawashi wants you to do. That's why none of these other nations care about what you're going through. Okay, but Yahawashi cares. But Jake don't care that Yahawashi cares about what they're going through. Okay, they want these other nations to care. All right, this is the book of Deuteronomy 30:1. It says, and it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee. Who put these curses upon you? It was Yahawashi. Okay, and he's the only one that can take them off. So you have to ask and beg Yahawashi to have mercy on you. Our people ain't doing that. Okay, they want these other nations to feel some kind of way. Then they get mad, you know, when their plight isn't heard. These other nations ain't supposed to hear your plight, man. Okay, the Most High wants you to solely rely upon Him. Okay, the Most High wants you to acknowledge that He is the end all be it all, and you Israelites ain't doing that. All right. It says, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither the Lord Yahawashi thy power hath driven thee, and shalt return unto the Lord Yahawashi thy power, and shalt obey His voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that then the Lord Yahawashi thy power will turn thy captivity. So the reason why you in captivity right now, the reason why you in the state that you in right now is because you pissed the Heavenly Father off. Okay, and until you take steps to make things right, you're going to stay in this predicament. Okay? But see, even with that, okay, the obstinate heart that you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans have, the Most High still going to have mercy on you. He ain't going to let you stay in this state. For those of you that reject the words of Yahawashi, the Most High is just going to get rid of you. Okay, He's going to save the elect, and He's going to bring you back in the kingdom. All right? And you're going to be in your right mind then. Okay, so the Most High ain't going to sit here and wait for you to, you know, change your mind. He's not going to destroy you and not bring you back. Okay? He's going to have mercy on you. It says that then the Lord Yahawashi thy power will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord Yahawashi thy power hath scattered thee. And that's the reason why we're in these nations. Okay, to acknowledge the offenses that we, you know, made against Yahawashi. Okay, and then turn back to Him. And will return and gather thee from all nations whither the Lord Yahawashi thy power hath scattered thee. If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord Yahawashi thy power gather thee, and from thence will He fetch thee. And the Lord Yahawashi will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and He will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. But the first step is acknowledging that you have offended Yahawashi. You got to come back to Him. Okay? It says, and the Lord Yahawashi thy power will circumcise thine heart and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord Yahawashi thy power with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And the Lord Yahawashi thy power will scatter thee, Slakia. And the Lord Yahawashi thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. And thou shalt return and obey the voice of the Lord Yahawashi thy power, to do all His commandments which I command thee this day. And the Lord Yahawashi thy power will make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, in the fruit of thy body, in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy land for good. For the Lord Yahawashi will again rejoice over thee for good, as He rejoiced over thy fathers. You know, so I just want to go into that. Yahawashi willing, it was edifying. I want to give all praises to Yahawah, Ba'ashem Yahawashi, Ba'ashem HaKadosh. Double honors to the apostles and the elder bishops at Great Millstone. Shalom.